Okay, so good morning everyone. Today we will be discussing about the topic of communication, that is a topic in paper 1 of UGC NET, and specifically we'll be talking about the subtopic which is barriers to communication. And this is basically a session where we will be discussing the previous year questions that have been asked, all right, over the years. So let us start. So the first question is, semantic barrier of communication is implied when the A. Signal is lost before reaching the receiver. Message transmitted by the source is unclear. Receiver's attention is diverted. Receiver does not understand the meaning of the message. This is a very simple question, I must say, and the correct answer is option number D. Why? Because semantic barrier refers to where the sender or the receiver has some kind of misinterpretation of the message with respect to specifically the meaning of the message. All right, the meaning of the message. There can be a kind of misunderstanding or misinterpretation because of that. All right, so this is the kind of semantic barrier of communication. So let us do the next question. The next question is, which of the following are barriers to effective communication? All right. Number one is physical noise. Yes. Semantic noise, psychological noise, and non-semantic noise. So here the answer would be A, B, and C. Why? Because physical noise, there are various kind of barriers. I hope you must have read all of the kind of barriers which are there for effective communication. So physical noise is already a barrier, semantic noise is also a barrier, psychological noise is also a barrier, but non-semantic noise, actually this is also very absurd term because non-semantic noise can include so many things, and this is specifically not given anywhere as a barrier as well. So this is not the correct option, and accordingly option number B is the correct one. All right, next question. Some of the barriers to effective communication are similar kind of questions. See, various kind of questions are of similar nature. Like, what are the barriers? Sometimes you will have questions like we'll see in the next slides also, where you have to match the barrier and the kind of or its description therein. All right. So similar kind of questions are repeated over the years. What you have to do is just be very well versed with the topic, which are actually the barriers, which are the strategies to overcome the barriers. All right. So let us see the question here. Some of the barriers to effective communication are polysemy, simple language, use of cliches, easy construction of sentences. See, this one again a very easy one, because clearly you can see that simple language and easy construction of sentences are not barriers. In fact, they are helpful in making the communication effective. So clearly polysemy and use of cliches, which is A and C, and accordingly option number D is the correct answer here. All right. What is polysemy? Polysemy is basically where one particular word, one single word actually is conveying different meanings. For example, you can take the example of the word get. Get means procure also, to procure things also. Get mean that do you get it? That means you understand also. So similar word is, portraying different meanings. So that is polysemy. And use of cliches. Cliches is basically losing the originality of the substance, because this have been repeated over a period of time, I mean again and again, very often one thing or one message has been repeated, so it becomes a cliche. So these two becomes the barriers to effective communication here in this question. So option number D is the correct option here. Next one. Which of the following will help overcome communication barriers? All right, as I was talking about the strategies to overcome communication barrier, here you will have to this question have to be addressed by reading about those kind of strategies. All right, number one is focused listening, neglecting semantic noise, top-down command structure, and use of cliched idioms. See, use of cliched idioms and top-down command structure, neglecting semantic noise. See, the C and D options are clearly very negative ones. All right, these cannot help in overcoming the communication barriers. Neglecting the semantic noise, obviously you cannot neglect the semantic noise when it is there. So it is also cannot become a strategy to overcome that barrier. Focused listening is one among the most impactful, I can say, the option here. So option number A is the correct option here. All right. Next question. Efficacy of written communication depends on. So efficacy of written communication depends on lengthy presentation, all right, complex sentence structure, editing after. See, start eliminating the options from the very first, given option only. So the lengthy presentation, obviously you cannot make your communication, written communication effective by creating lengthy, messages, because that becomes very monotonous and very boring when the receiver is actually reading all of that. So straight away eliminate this. All right. Next one, complex sentence structure. Again, it cannot, create effective complex structure. All right. Sorry, the effective written communication. Next one is editing after writing. Yes, when you write and you edit, when you edit the message which you have written, you exclude all the flaws there. So C is right here. Brevity in sentences, that is keeping the sentences short and brief. All right, so this is also can make your communication effective. Use of strong words. This is not actually correct. Why? Because strong words, using of strong words do not help you in making your communication effective. In fact, it can sometimes lead to confusion to the receiver, because he would not be able to understand maybe the meaning of the strong words and the context in which the words have been used. All right. So this is also incorrect. Effective use of words, obviously it is there. So C, D, and F, it is option number C. All right. Moving ahead. Next question. We listen attentively to and favorably interpret messages which boost our self-image, and reject or misinterpret messages which threaten that image. All right, this is called communication selectivity, change resistance, image rationalization, communication distortion. See, two straightaway options you can which you can eliminate is option number B, which is change resistance and communication distortion. This cannot and do not set into the definition which is given there. Let me tell you the correct answer first, which is communication selectivity, because here we are selectively and choosing the messages, because we are choosing those things in the message which are actually helping us improve our self-image. All right, and we obviously reject or we try to misinterpret the messages which threaten our self-image or which threaten our values and the belief system. All right, so here the option with which you can get confused with is image rationalization, because self-image and image rationalization, these are kind of overlapping stuff, and you may feel that this is the correct option, but no, because image rationalization is completely different thing. And it is actually when you try to rationalize your image. This is not about misinterpreting or interpreting the messages. So communication selectivity is the correct option here. All right, next question. Match list 1 with list 2. All right, here as I was telling you that sometimes you can see questions where barrier and its description has been given, you have to match. These are all very easy kind of questions. So communication barrier, number 1, it is given physical barrier, then psychological, language, and cultural. All right, so one by one we'll start matching them. Physical barrier is which one? Different understanding, stereotypes, predisposed notion, inaudible noise. Inaudible noise is one of the physical barriers. All right, next is psychological barrier. Psychological barrier is different understanding, predisposed notions, stereotypes. It is predisposed notions. Predisposed notions are you have made up your mind regarding something beforehand, that this is going to be like this. All right, so this can hamper the communication, because which the sender, which the actually the sender wants to convey to you, you already have a mindset that this message is going to be like that, or it is going to be a negative message. Even if it is telling you something positive thing, you won't take it uh, that way. All right, so this becomes a kind of psychological barrier. All right, language. Now language is related to obviously different understanding. So it is different understanding is with the language. And the last one is cultural. Cultural is stereotypes. Stereotypes are basically, in Hindi we call it धारणाएं. When you made a dharna कि ये चीज ऐसी है या ये चीज वैसी है. Already predisposed notions and stereotypes are kind of same things, but predisposed notions are mostly on the negative side. All right, stereotypes are, for example, in a culture, we consider white as a see, for example, very easy example you can take, that Britishers, they wear white in their weddings, but here in India we do not consider white as a good color for a wedding. We consider red, pink, or bright colors in the wedding. All right, so this is a kind of stereotype, so this becomes a kind of cultural barrier here. All right, so accordingly option number A is the correct option here. All right, next question. Match list 1 with list 2. All right, again the similar kind of question. Communication barriers have been given and the description have been asked. All right, semantic barrier. Semantic barrier is clearly related to the faulty message. All right, psychological barrier, is it lack of time, poor attention, lack of physical clarity in channel? What can be the semantic psychological barrier? It is poor attention, because psychology also relates to your memory as well. So when you cannot retain the message properly, this becomes a psychological barrier. All right, next question, next one is personal. Personal problem or personal barrier can be lack of time. All right, when you do not have time and you hurry up in listening to what the actually message is being communicated to you, that becomes a personal barrier. All right, and the last one is physical barrier. Lack of physical clarity in the channel, when there is no clarity in the channel through which you are communicating your message to, so this becomes a physical barrier. All right, so here option number B is the correct option. All right, next question. Which of the following can be the major communication barriers to online teaching? All right. So number one, let us start doing this question through the elimination method itself. Number one, technology. Yes, obviously it can become a communication barrier when the sender or maybe the receiver is not very well versed with the technology you are using in the in your communication or in your online teaching. All right, so technology is a factor. Legalities, no, legalities do not count as a communication barrier. Basically, this cannot be considered as a communication barrier, because legality is something outside what communication is. It is regarding the rules and regulations of using online teaching and misusing online teaching. All right, so next is student community. All right, student community cannot maybe hamper the communication in a way. Culture, yes, culture becomes a communication barrier. And next is gender. Obviously, if you are a male teacher or a female teacher, or if the listener or the receiver is a male or a female, then it actually becomes a kind of, sometimes the communication can become biased. Like in receiving the message, you may can add on your other psychological barriers also in that. So technology, culture, and gender, that is 1, 4, and 5 is the correct answer here, which is option number B. All right, let us do the next question. All right, given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion and another is labeled as reason. All right, assertion is given as effective communicators align their appearance with body language and tone. All right, yes, they do it. It is true. One thing we are sure about is that the statement is true. Next is, such an alignment forms part of the art of persuasion. Obviously, this is also true. Why? And let me tell you that both are true, and the reason given is the correct explanation for the assertion being stated here. Why? Because when you are an effective communicator, all right, when you want to communicate something, your body language and your tone would also be, coordinated with what you actually want to deliver, and that becomes an art of persuasion, because that is why you will be able to persuade the receiver about the message you want to communicate. All right, this maybe you have seen many TV commercials where to make the communication effective, their body language, their appearance, their tone, actually all are coordinated. Why? Because they want to persuade the customers to purchase their products. All right, so this is TV commercial is an example here to understand it in a much better way. Next is removal of communication barriers in a classroom will result in, all right, clear enunciation of specific instructional behaviors, climate of purposeful student interaction, promotion of personality cult, all right, the irrelevance of illustrative examples. See, when we remove the barriers, so would there be a promotion of personality cult? No. What is personality cult? When the message is related to only the personality. If the personality is good, then we will only receive the message in a positive way, otherwise we won't. So if we are trying to remove the barriers, that is not going to happen. All right, the irrelevance of illustrative examples, obviously this is also incorrect. Why? Because when you want to give illustrative examples, this is not irrelevant, this is not a barrier, because this becomes effective. So in that case, which of the option is correct? Option number A, 1 and 2 are correct. Oh, all right. Next question. Given below are two statements. One is another assertion reason question. See, you can see over 2 to 3 questions from the topic barriers of communication in one paper, and one maybe not more than one can be there of type assertion and reason when there are 1 or 2 questions, or maybe the last is 3, the count where you can be asked about the barriers of communication. Not 3, I guess only 2, 1 or 2 are the maximum questions per paper which have been asked from this subtopic. All right. So coming back to the question, assertion given here is repeating more and more the same message will make it important. Okay. Don't use 2 words when one will do is the guiding principle that works. All right. So see, number 2 is correct. That is reason given, the statement actually is correct. All right. When you are using 2 words when one can do, that relates to the brevity of the message, which is one among the 7 principles of communication. All right. So this is true, but assertion given here is not correct. Why? Because repeating the same message again and again will not gonna make it important, as the sender sometimes may behave in that way that once you are going to repeat the same message again and again, it will become important to the sender. No, it will become monotonous and boring. So in that case, the true option is, that is A is false and R is true. Option number D. All right. Next question. A major barrier in transmission of cognitive data in the process of communication is an individual's personality, all right, his expectation, his social status, and his coding ability. So the correct answer here is coding ability. Why? What is actually coding ability and why we are focusing on coding ability? Why not personality, expectation, social status? Because what has been asked here is cognitive data. What is cognitive data? When you want to put your thoughts into your words, symbols, or signs. So this is actually you are making or doing coding of the thoughts which are there in your mind. So this is the coding ability. The correct answer here is option number D. All right. Next question. Which are the barriers to effective communication? All right. What are the barriers to effective communication? Straight away, straight question is given. No ABCD, analyzing the statements, multiple statements here. So it itself becomes an easy question when you straightforward have only 4 options given, and you do not have to, pick out the options A, B, C, and B, C, D are true and false in that way. All right. So what are the barriers to effective communication? Moralizing, being judgmental, and comments of consolation. See, if you are very well versed with the barriers, you will straightforwardly mark option A as the correct one. You won't even go to the another options to see what are given there. All right. Let us just read otherwise. Dialogue, summary, self-review, obviously not a barrier. Use of simple words, cool reaction, defensive attitude, not barriers. Personal statements, eye contact, simple narration. These are not barriers. In fact, these are the principles, or these are basic factors of making the communication effective. So straightforwardly, very easy question. Option number A is the correct one. Next question. According to Robbins et al., the sequence of barriers to effective communication in an organization is, what is actually the proper sequence of communication barriers? All right. So here is there a proper sequence. Let us first see what is the sequence. So number one, according to Robin and other authors, what have been given in this, filtering comes at number one. All right. Next is, let us just mark the options here only. Filtering, number one. Next one is the selective perception. All right. Next is information overload. Next is emotions. And the last one is the language. So this is the kind of sequence which is being given by Robbins regarding the barriers to effective communication. So number one comes as filtering. Filtering is what? When you try to receive the message according to your belief system and your value system. All right. So this becomes filtering, when you are trying to filter the message and not taking the message as it is being communicated to you. So all right. So filtering is one thing. Selective perception, now you want to perceive that message according to what your belief system, what your personality is. So this is selective perception. This becomes the second barrier. Next is information overload. All right. Load of information. When information is given in huge amounts, this becomes an overload of information. That obviously becomes a barrier, because that would be difficult to retain that kind of huge amount of information. Emotions comes next, and then finally the language becomes the barriers to effective communication. So here E, C, D. So E, C, D, B and A. Option number D is the correct option here. All right. Next question. In communication, entropy refers to. Entropy is basically a general term which is given. All right. Sometimes it becomes a barrier also. Why? Because entropy means when your message is very unpredictable. When the sender is trying to, communicate a message which is whose nature is very unpredictable, that you cannot predict the message, that what the message actually wants to convey. All right. So this leads to misinterpretation, misunderstanding. So entropy is basically unpredictable messages. All right. Next question. Keeping quiet because of fear of punishment in communication is an dash barrier. Institutional, interactional, incentive, individual. Very easy question. All right. Individual is the kind of barrier which is related to fear. All right. There are various kind of physical barriers, psychological barriers, but various kind of individual barriers are there are differences in personality. All right. There are perceptual differences. There are fear. All right. Fear, anxieties. Many other kind of, other kind of factors becomes individual barriers. All right. So this was a very easy question. Option number D is the correct one. Next question. Given below are two statements. One is another assertion and reason question. All right. Assertion is teachers should accept students as they are and with whatever cognitive level they have. All right. This is true. All right. Next is moralizing, being judgmental, exposing ignorance are barriers to successful communication. Same question has been asked in a different manners, that which among the following is a barrier. We have just done that question 2 or 3 questions back. So here the teacher should accept the students as they are. Yes, because moralizing or being judgmental becomes barriers to successful communication. That is, both of them are true, and assertion, reason is the correct explanation for the assertion. So here option number A is the correct option. Next question. Which of the following are myths about communication? All right. What all are the myths here? See, good communicators are born and not made. Yes, this is a myth, obviously. Next is stage fright. is not a communication apprehension. No, this is also a myth. All right. Stage fear kind of is actually a communication apprehension. All right. So this is a kind of myth. Communication skills have nothing to do with the relationships. This also is a myth. All right. Next is communication has its own barriers. No, this is not a myth. This is true. Practice leads to the right habits of communication. Again, this is not a myth. This is also a true statement. So ABC, which is option number A, is the correct option here. Next one. All right. Identify the sequence of cultural barriers in communication as listed by experts. Again, now the sequence of cultural barriers have been asked. Initially, in the previous question, there were normal sequence of communication barriers was asked. All right. So here, let us just mark the sequence here itself. All right. So first is methods. First is the semantic. The sequence is here like that. First is semantic. Next is the word connotation. Third is the tone differences. Then comes the differences in tolerance of conflicts. And the last one is methods of conflict resolution. So this is the kind of sequence of cultural barriers which has been given by various experts. All right. So here option number C, E, D, B, A, option number A is the correct option here. All right. So next question. From the list given below, identify the psychological barriers to communication. All right. Which all are the psychological barriers? Noise, invisibility. See, noise and invisibility clearly are physical barriers. You can straightforwardly eliminate them. And if you see, and if you work smartly, and if you want to save your time, see that three options are given. Choose the option where A and B are not given. Otherwise, you can go ahead with understanding what is prejudice. Obviously, psychological disinterest. Yes, psychological inattention. Yes, psychological barriers. So C, D, E, which is option number C, is the correct option here. All right. Next question. Identify the barriers to communication from the list given below. All right. Time and distance. Is it a barrier to communication? Yes, it is a barrier to communication. Next question. Bypassed instructions. Obviously, this becomes a barrier to communication because when you bypass the instructions, when you do not understand the instructions carefully, it becomes a barrier. All right. Encoding of thoughts and ideas. No, this is not a barrier to communication. This is one of the steps in the process of communication. Similar is the decoding, and logical sequence is the kind of principle of effective communication and not the barrier. All right. So A and B are correct. Accordingly, option number A is the correct option here. Next question. Physical barriers to communication are rapidly disappearing, but psychological obstacles remain owing to which of the following? All right. So here, by formal language, by visual presentation, by use of technology, by emotional appeal, or by cultural attitude, which are actually, it is asking about which are actually the psychological obstacles which remain, which are not able to be eliminated. So here, by formal language, yes, this also becomes a psychological obstacle because it leads to misunderstanding and misrepresentation. And next is by visual presentation. No, this is a physical barrier. Use of technology is a physical barrier. Emotional appeal, yes. And by cultural attitude. Also, if the term attitude is given, it becomes a psychological barrier because culture also influences your dispositions, your stereotypes. So this also becomes psychological barrier. A, D, and E, which is option number A. All right, is the correct option here. Next question. Which of the following is an example of physical barrier to communication? All right. Physical barrier, cultural disparity, inattention, verbalism, ill health. Ill health is the physical barrier. Very easy question. All right. Next is in communication, semantic barrier refers to semantic. Again, the term semantic barrier refers to the meaning which is detonative meaning, varied connotations, truth and singular meaning. See, it is a kind of, see, truth you can clearly eliminate. Singular meaning, obviously not. Yes, you can get confused with the term because semantic is related to meaning. So this can be denotative meaning, varied connotations, and singular meaning also. But how the meaning becomes a barrier. Singular meaning do not becomes a barrier because it is conveying you one single meaning which cannot become a barrier. Next is varied connotations, when you can have different kind of meanings extracted from the similar kind of word or the sentence. So this is the correct option here, varied connotations. All right. Next, another is the assertion reason question here. Being judgmental on the part of a teacher is a barrier to communication. True. For effective learning outcomes, the teacher should expose the ignorance of students. The teacher should expose the ignorance. No, this is clearly very negative thing to do. All right. You cannot expose the ignorance of the students. You can in fact try to remove that ignorance. All right. So here, A is true but R is false. So option number C is the correct option here. All right, 27th. The sequence of barriers to reception classroom communication is, all right, is it attitude, anxieties, expectation, needs? We have to analyze and put the sequence of barriers. All right, so here, what would be the sequence? Sequence here is number one is the needs. Obviously, when you have a different kind of need, or when you have a specific need, that becomes a barrier. Related to the need is the anxieties. When you have particular needs, you will create anxieties. So needs is number one, then is number two is anxieties. Then after the anxieties, your expectations also can hamper and can lead to become a barrier also. And then finally your attitude, the way you act depending upon your needs, anxieties, and expectation becomes your attitude. So the correct is 4231, which is D, B, C, A, and the option number D is the correct option. All right. Next is match list 1 with list 2. Barriers and the description is given. All right. So here, channel noise is related to what? Channel noise is related to interference with the medium. All right. Next is semantic noise. Semantic noise is related to your language disorder. All right. Psychological noise. Psychological noise is related to difference in perception. And entropy. Entropy because it is giving you what? Various kind of unpredictable messages. So this becomes a state of disorder. All right. So here option number B is the correct answer. All right. Next question. Which of the following are barriers to understand the communicated message? Again, similar kind of questions, but different ways to ask. All right. Prejudgment, source credibility, length of communication, source creation, existing knowledge of the receiver. All right. So which of the following are the barriers to communication? It is prejudgment. Yes, true. Source credibility, when the source is credible, this is not a barrier. Length of communication. Length of communication, yes, because when the communication is lengthy, it becomes a barrier. All right. Source creation, when the source actually is creating the message, this cannot be what do we say, a barrier. All right. Existing knowledge of the receiver, yes, this also becomes a barrier. So here option number A is the correct option. Next question. In communication, cross-cultural barrier refers to, what are the cross-cultural barriers? Are these cross-cultural barrier related to physical entities? No. Sincerity of the speaker? No. This has no relation with the culture, perceptions of the people, general human values. So here the correct option is perception of the people, because culture actually predicts the perceptions of the people. It forms, or it creates various kind of the personalities which have different kind of perceptions. All right. The people that, as I was telling you, the example of white being considered as pure and lucky in Western culture, but in India we do not consider it as good, in especially in case of weddings. All right. So perception of people is a cross-cultural barrier here. All right. Next question. for today, which one of the following is a strategy to overcome communication barriers? All right, strategy. Setting of ground rules. Obviously, setting of ground rules, yani ki when you set rules, you actually are setting a strategy to overcome barriers. All right. Aggression, no. Advanced technology provision, no, not always. All right, because sometimes advanced technology can hamper your communication, because the people, the sender or the receiver, maybe they are not well versed with the kind of technology you are using. All right, use of jargons are the use of slang language. So even this is not a strategy. Obviously these are negative things, specifically B and D. So here the straightforwardly the correct answer is A. All right, so this was for today, and thank you very much.